how do you start a restoration project?
It depends on what condition the car comes to me in.
Okay.
Ideally, I'd like to put the car on the road first.
Okay.
Test the engine, transmission, test all the running mechanical components before I start opening the car up.
Okay.
Once I've made an assessment, then I start dismantling the car, take the body off from the chassis, restore the chassis, fit the suspension, brake, steering to the chassis, fit the engine, transmission, test drive the chassis first, then fit the body back onto the chassis, then do the body work, then paint, and then towards final fitment, electricals, chrome.
Why is it that, restoring these old machines, 60, 70, 80-year-old machines, takes approximately even a year and a half, or even maybe 2 years to restore, and a modern day car, it can be tuned and modified within a couple of weeks? Why is that so?
See, one is availability of spare parts. That is a very big factor.
But वो तो US, Dubai and places like this मिल नहीं जाते parts?
Not all brands.
Okay.
It depends on what brand of car you have.
Okay.
Certain cars you get parts are much more easily available. Some cars are very difficult and very scarce.
Okay.
That is A. And second is they are very labor intensive to work on.
Okay.
Right. With the modern car you can just change everything or tune it by putting in a wire and tuning it up. But these cars are more mechanically intensive. One is also you need the right skilled people who know the work and who can help work on these cars. So that is very important.
How do you gauge the health of the engine in these kind of cars?
One is, of course, if there is smoke or any noise which is evident. And second thing is by using the same technique we do in modern cars of using a compression gauge.
But फर्क नहीं होता यार, because modern engines and the old engines, metallurgy में इतना फर्क होता होगा?
बिल्कुल है, because most of these cars have cast iron blocks. And metallurgy is one thing, but the other thing is compression is something which is a standard measure, right? So, for example, a Polo may say have a standard compression of 220 psi per cylinder, or a Swift may have 180 psi per cylinder. So you have ratings of which engine has, what is the rated compression should be there. So okay, we can say 25% because of the age of the engine, or 30% less because of the age of the engine. But by and large, that is the amount of loss there should be in compression.
Like I told you when I came in to meet you that, even I have in mind, I want to be able to, have a vehicle from the 60s or from the 50s or probably from the 40s with a good big engine.
Right.
So, how should I be going about picking up a vehicle?
So, first is what kind of a vehicle you like.
Okay.
Or A. Then B is vitamin M. We are back to that because these cars are expensive to restore and get parts and repair and own.
Right.
And they need consistent maintenance. Right. And then thirdly, then you start scouting for a car, look for a car. If you find, then you need to see what condition it is in.
That's exactly what I actually wanted to understand, that how do I, like a layman, as
so you need somebody to probably advise you on that.
Okay.
In terms of, one is originality of the car, as in does it have the original engine, gearbox, and the original trims, original seats, meters. These things determine the value of the car, right? And there is also a rough market value of these cars. So once you have, and then you decide if it fits if it fits the bill.
So for example, if I want to go and pick up a vintage car or an old machine that I'm wanting to bring to you for restoration, जो बंदा मुझे गाड़ी बेच रहा है उसके पास मान लो 10 गाड़ियां खड़ी है, तो अगर मैं आपको साथ लेके भी जाता हूं, तो from what I can understand is गाड़ी को जब तक स्टार्ट करके नहीं देखेंगे, इंजन को थोड़ा सा रन करके नहीं देखेंगे, तब तक we can not really decide whether or not we should buy.
Yeah, and drive the car.
So how do you do that? Does the guy who's selling in general allow you to do that before you buy the vehicle?
They do.
Okay.
Nobody's going to buy a car without driving it, even in vintage or new cars.
Right. If you own such a car, are you supposed to have a specific license not to drive but to put these vehicles on road or drive these vehicles on road?
Right. So the main issue is of Delhi NCR, right?
Okay.
So in other cities and states in India, they are still renewing the fitness of these cars. Right?
Oh.
Papers are valid. Insurance
only
is
Delhi NCR it's an issue.
So I'll come back to that.
Okay.
So people are using these cars freely.
Okay.
Every Sunday there are people who go on drives. There are a group of people who are going on drives or on long drives, right? We recently did something like that from Calcutta to Shantiniketan with my club in Calcutta,
Okay.
which is about 150 kilometers from Calcutta,
Okay. Okay.
and back over 2 days we did that.
Okay.
And there is no issue per se. Now, coming to Delhi NCR, you have a specific provision which is called the Vintage Act. So, Vintage Act cars which are more than 50 years old, you can get them registered under the Vintage Act. You get a special vintage number for these cars.
Acha.
So, but also there is a rule from the NGT that these cars can only be used for A, maintenance, B, for any show or any display, and that's about it, or refueling. These
Even
are the
like
three.
a Sunday drive, you can't
Do it.
pull it out.
Not just for the sake of it. Yeah, you can take it to the nearest petrol pump, fill some fuel, park it back, things like that.
Okay. Okay.
So that is the legality of the situation.
And for example, if we go in for like a kit car, which I spoke to you about,
Right.
उसमें भी same problems हैं?
Kit car is more difficult because how do you register it?
राइट हाँ, कम से कम ये गाड़ियां तो ये है कि वो विंटेज कार वाले उसके साथ उस कैटेगरी में एटलीस्ट रजिस्टर तो हो जाएंगी. ओके. So tell us about a little bit about this car. Not a little bit, a lot about this car. Where the journey started. How old is this car? You had mentioned how old is this car?
This is a 1956 Studebaker President.
And this belonged to your granddad.
No, so this was, we had many of these in the house. So this was last picked up by my father in 2002.
Oh.
This particular car.
Okay. Acha. So it's a recent purchase for you.
Yeah.
And what was the condition when you bought it?
Car was complete, intact, but needed a lot of body and cosmetic work.
Acha.
Then over time it's been done. So this has come into my possession in the last 1 year.
Okay.
So where I've been working on this car.
Okay.
And what you can see, we've got the chrome, got the paint.
So before 1 year, before you got this car, was this vehicle being driven regularly or how?
No, it's not been driven since it was bought. It was awaiting restoration.
Since 2002. Okay. And how much time did you take to restore this entire thing?
So till where you can see it today, it's taken me about little over a year.
Okay.
So yeah, I've got the final finishing touches of the interior left. I think which we should be finishing by the end of this month.
I'm sure इसका पूरा chassis and the body काफी rusting के issues वगैरह भी रहे होंगे.
Everything was badly rusted and corroded.
So the entire body tub, entire chassis, you had to
remove and redo
the entire thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And what engine is this running? It's a V8.
It's a V8, original factory fitted 4.7 liter V8.
Okay. Tell me one thing. I've noticed that a lot of the modern day engines, इतने मतलब जो लोग कहते हैं, at least मुझे तो नहीं पता, but a lot of the modern day engines, they are not considered to be as reliable as these engines. इन engines का लोग कहते हैं कि इन engines के अंदर कुछ ऐसा था कि आप 60-70 साल के बाद भी अगर उसको ऑन करो थोड़ा बहुत रिफर्बिश करके तो वो इंजन चल जाते हैं.
Because they are very basic in terms of their nature. Technically very basic engines.
Okay.
And no electronics involved. So that is one thing that helps them being more reliable.
Okay. But it's basically because of the electronics.
Mainly.
Okay. Understood. So I think this is the machine that you were talking about, and this is, I believe, one of your favorite machines.
Yes, it is, and it was my dad's favorite as well.
And why is that? What is it about this machine that
so
makes
this particular car was it's only one of its kind in India. It's a 1956 Studebaker Golden Hawk.
Okay.
And original history of this car is it was owned by one of the Maharanas of Nepal.
Okay.
And then they sold this. They had imported this car from America. And the Nepal family also had connections in Calcutta.
And in which year did they import?
In 56 March, as per the dispatch order that I have for this car.
And that's the date of the manufacturing?
Yeah, same year.
Okay.
This is made in January and they imported it in March or April.
Got it.
Right? And then the car was sold to the Mahindra jute mills in Calcutta.
Okay.
And then people used to use the car in the company there. And then one of the employees of the Mahindra family used to learn art from my grandmother. She was an art teacher.
Okay.
So this particular car used to come to our house, and my dad used to be very young when this car used to come. And he remembers seeing this car then. And he always had a fascination for this car.
Okay.
बोलो उसको बंद करे.
कोई बात नहीं, करने दे उसको थोड़ा.
हाँ, so after that, another family friend of ours bought this car from the Mahindras.
Okay.
He was a friend of my grandfather's.
Acha, the car was owned by Mahindra family.
Mahindra Jute Mills in Calcutta.
Okay, okay.
And then one of the employees bought it, who was a family friend of my grandfather.
Okay.
And then he used this car very regularly.
Okay.
And then one day he had a major accident with this car in Calcutta.
I see.
And this car went off the road in the mid 80s, I would say, mid to late 80s.
It was
because of the accident.
Total loss तो नहीं था लेकिन.
Front से it was damaged. The right side, being a left-hand drive car, the front right was completely written off.
Okay. Okay.
And then after that, the car has not been in commission since then, actually, from the late 80s. And I think last Sunday was when we got it on the road after more than 32 years or something like that.
So what you mean to say, because I remember you mentioning that this is a new engine that you have picked up.
No, I've overhauled the engine.
The same engine you've overhauled. Okay.
All chassis number, engine number, body number, everything is matching. Nothing is changed.
Okay. Understood. But I love the lines of this machine, and I remember you showing me the pictures of what this car would actually look like.
Some unique features of this car of its time: it had tinted green glass. This is also original windscreen from factory. It had air conditioning, power steering, power brakes, power windows, all from the factory. All mentioned on the dispatch invoice, which I have a copy of. Not the original, but a copy of.
Can we get an idea as to back in those days when this car was being manufactured, what was the cost of this car?
I have no idea.
And how much did you guys pay to buy this machine?
I think my dad paid something like 25,000 in 1992. 92, yeah.
Okay. And if I ask you that I want to buy this car after you're done with it, how much
I don't think
will
I'm
you
going to
sell it for?
I think I'm going to sell it.
I'm sure. What engine is this running on? Again, a V8, is it?
5.7 liter V8.
Okay.
Because Studebaker and Packard came into collaboration in 1956. So that is when they had this engine in this car.
Okay.
Also, they had something called the Sky Power Kit.
Okay.
So this was 275 horsepower from the factory stock. And with the Sky Power Kit, Sky Power Kit has twin carburetor, high lift camshaft, which pumps the power up by another 100 horsepower.
Because I've seen a lot of machines which are based out of Great Britain also.
Right.
So how would you compare these, these old cars of that era? How would you compare an American car with a British car in terms of quality and durability and longevity?
See, American cars, because of the manufacturing and the industrial revolution in America, used more heavier gauge of metal and steel. Okay. Everything was about chrome, how much show, how much bling.
Okay.
Whereas the British cars were more subdued, had more wood than metal and chrome.
Right.
So American cars are known to have big engines and with more horsepower output. Because also fuel being reasonably cheap back in the day.
Right.
British cars you'd see have smaller engines.
No, but back in the days, those cars like name a few British classic cars.
You had the MG, you had Austin, Morris.
MG and all, I remember they were not that big engines like the Americans.
Those were more sports car oriented, also had, or family oriented cars.
Right.
With more plush woodwork.
And what about the Germans? Like I saw a couple of Mercedes Benz like you have of that era. How would you compare the Germans with Americans back in those days?
Germans are more refined power, more refined comfort.
Okay.
Right? And more technologically far superior.
Okay. And in terms of longevity and durability?
They are reliable cars, as reliable as the American cars.
Okay. Because in the modern day today, what I've seen is like, for example, a Toyota versus a Volkswagen. Why is it that people now say that, a Japanese Toyota it'll probably last you longer than a Volkswagen engine, and back in the day, a European engine, वो कहावत थी ना कि दादा खरीदते पोता भरते.
हाँ.
तो वो उस टाइम पे थी या आज भी वो चीज है applicable?
I think it's more complicated with all the emission norms and also, the complexity of electronics, which is, and also quality of fuel, maintenance. And say a car like a Volkswagen I would personally say is not meant for a country like India because of the severe temperatures here and changes, quality of fuel that we have here.
Okay.
I would honestly think it's more meant for more free drives like in Europe or in America,
Okay.
where where reliability you can see.
But don't you think these guys would be testing those machines in Germany or wherever? I mean, they're testing in in extreme temperature environments.
I understand that, but also traffic conditions is also playing a huge part, no? Of stop and start traffic in India versus driving in Europe. So, for example, as you can see in most older BMWs, you'll see of the 2000s
Right.
or of the late 10s, 2010s, you'll see the interior plastics have started melting. Same problem in Jaguars.
Yes.
Cracks in the dashboard in the plastics.
Right. I think that was also a very similar problem that Anirudh was also experiencing in the 545.
Yes.
That was which year BMW was that?
2006.
2006. उसमें भी same issues देखे थे मैंने, वो प्लास्टिक की बीडिंग्स वगैरह हैं, रबर बीडिंग्स थी, वो सारी
all melting
and drying up and breaking down.
Similar issues with Mercs also. Typical things, the plastic beadings under the windscreen, the cowl top, the handles, the grab handles. So that's my reason for saying they are not really meant for India. And Jap cars are more versatile.
Versatile, and I feel that's the reason why, I mean, it is said that आज की डेट में if you buy a Toyota, you don't need to think twice.
Unless you buy a diesel and you're forced to sell it because of the NGT rule.
So I think, yeah, on that note, there are a gazillion more questions which I could possibly ask you, but I'm just not able to frame myself right now. But thank you so much for your time, man.
Lovely. Thank you so much for dropping in and making you wait for so long.
So many different things and knowing you better, honestly.
Yes.
Take care, guys. Sparky, Indrajit Sarkar once again. Aradhya Gupta, Internal Combustion, signing out.